Got the Ron Palmer Show here. It's 56 degrees. We got our first guest on the phone. His name is Garnet Schulhauser. Good morning, Garnet.
Good morning, Ron.
Garnet is an author. His latest book, darn, Garnet, let me make sure I got that correct. Why don't you give it to us?
Dancing Forever with Spirit.
Yes. First, give us a little bit of information about yourself, Garnet.
Okay, well, I'm a retired lawyer. I practiced corporate law for over 30 years in Calgary, in Canada. I live in Victoria, BC right now. And I started writing after I retired, and I've written 2 books, Dancing on a Stamp, and my second one is Dancing Forever with Spirit.
Forever with a Spirit. Now, do you consider yourself a psychic, Garnet?
No, I'm not a psychic, but I do. But my books are about my contacts with one of my spirit guides, Albert. And he appeared to me first of all as a homeless man one day on the street, and that was detailed in my first book, Dancing on a Stamp. The second book, he appeared in my bedroom one night in astral form and took me on a series of astral out-of-body adventures to the spirit side and to other parts of the universe and to visit some alien races, and that's what the second book is all about.
Wow.
I'm not a psychic, but I have done some astral travels, and I've had a dialogue with my spirit guide, which is what my books are about.
Oh, that is interesting. Now, you're not a psychic, but you've referenced this experience. Does that mean that you think that everyone has a spirit guide and everyone could be contacted by their spirit guide and go through the same experiences that you did?
Everyone has at least 2 or 3 spirit guides. Even though most of us are not aware of them, our spirit guides do contact everyone, but most of the time it's very subtle, Ron. It's like through intuitive messages and gut feelings and so on. My contact with my spirit guide was very unusual, and it's because he wanted me to be able to recall what I'd experienced and write books about it. So you have 2 or 3 spirit guides. You may not have had direct contact with them, Ron.
Okay, we're talking with Garnet Schulhauser. He's an author. Former attorney, didn't know that, Garnet. Now, you say everyone has at least one spirit guide. Where do they come from? How do they get assigned to each individual? How did you get assigned to your particular spirit guide?
Well, it all happens before you're born. Before you're born, you make out a life plan about where you want to be born. You know, your parents and your siblings and so on. All the major detailed plans. You do that because you want to experience certain things, Ron. And as part of that planning process, you find some souls over on the other side who want to be your spirit guide, who will volunteer to be that. Your spirit guides are just like a coach, and they sort of try to coach you as you make your way through life. And when you come to a decision point, they try to send you a message, a subtle message to take the right path. So you chose your spirit guides before you were born.
Wow. So before you're conceived, even before you're in utero, you are able to choose things that's going to impact your life when you are born, including your spirit guide?
Absolutely, yeah. You plan it all out. Not every little detail, but you plan out the major things. When you're on the spirit side as a soul, you decide to incarnate on Earth, and so you choose sort of the major circumstances, choose your spirit guide. But when you're born, you forget all this. You're not allowed to know what's in your life plan or who your spirit guides are. That's all just part of the challenge of having an incarnation on Earth. But you planned it all, and when you get back to the spirit side, Ron, when you leave this planet, you remember it all again.
Do you become a spirit guide for someone else when you leave this world?
You can, yeah, you certainly can, because it's open to any soul on the other side to be a spirit guide for another person, and quite often you will trade places. Like one incarnation, a soul will be your spirit guide. Next time that soul incarnates, you might be his or her spirit guide. So you do trade places. So
again, before you're born, before you conceive, before sperm hits egg, you're making your life plan. And
absolutely.
Then what happens, Garnet, when you see people do stupid stuff? Did they plan that? Mass killings and bank robberies and drug dealing? Do people plan that, or is it some sort of external force that causes them to do that?
Well, sometimes it's planned because, and that's difficult to understand, because sometimes the people, the victims, wanted to experience that particular drama, and they enlist somebody to be the bad guy. So sometimes it's planned. Most of the time, no, it's just free will running amok because we all have free will here, and we don't remember what we had planned, and so sometimes our free will runs amok, and we lose control of our negative emotions, and that, for the most part, is where we have people doing very stupid things and violent things.
Again, we're talking with Garnet Schulhauser. He's an author. Very interesting person so far in our conversation. I'm sure you listeners are agreeing with that. When did this happen? Now, you were an attorney, and then you retired, or before you retired, you were contacted by your spirit guide.
Yeah, I was still practicing law, and I was taking a stroll down the street one day, and all of a sudden this homeless man jumps out in front of me and stops me in my tracks. And he looked like a typical homeless man, except that he had these amazing, dazzling, sparkling blue eyes. It was sending this wave of pure, unconditional love to me, infusing me with an amazing sense of peace and security. So I knew he was a special kind of guy, and even though I was skeptical at first, I eventually sat down and started talking to this guy, and he let on that he was actually one of my spirit guides. He had come to answer my questions, and he wanted me to write a book so that his revelations could be available to everyone. So that led to a series of conversations which resulted in Dancing on a Stamp. And then the second set of encounters was the astral traveling, which I detail in Dancing Forever with Spirit.
So now, when he sat you down, when you became aware that he was your spirit guide, he wanted you to chronicle his revelations. What were some of his revelations?
Well, the major ones basically flew in the face of all the Christian church teachings, for so many centuries. Basically, it is that God or the Source did not put us here. We chose to come here ourselves. The Source does not make rules for us to follow, and the Source does not control the events in our lives. And as a follow-up to that, of course, when you die, you don't appear before the Source to receive your judgment and then a reward or a punishment. So that everyone, every soul on earth, no matter what you do, you end up back in the spirit side or back in heaven, no matter what you did, because there's no other place to go. And an incarnation on earth is just a learning experience, and you just can't go wrong. You're always going to end up back on the other side, and if you've messed up and made mistakes, you will learn from that and then choose your next incarnation. So it's really quite contradictory to what the Christian church, and I was raised as a Roman Catholic, quite contradictory to most of the things that they taught me as a child.
Yeah, it's quite contradictory to what most folks were probably taught as a child. Garnet, we've got to take care of some business. We've got to go to a commercial. But on the other side, when we come back, I've got a whole new series of questions to ask you, and mainly about religion. You called the Source. Is that when you say the Source, I'm assuming you mean God, but I'm not going to put that word in your mouth. But when we come back, I'd like some clarification on that.
You're in the right place. The Ron Ponder Show, weekdays from 10 till noon. News Talk 1480, WHBC.
And we're back. We're talking with an author. His name is Garnet Schulhauser. Calling from Canada today, right, Garnet?
Yes, from Victoria, BC.
How's the weather up there?
It's very nice. It's going to be mid-60s today and sunny.
Okay. Well, we're talking about... we're talking about his books, Dancing on a Stamp, Startling Revelations from the Other Side. What kind of, you mentioned the spiritual side, I'm assuming that's the other side, and you mentioned a source, and I'm assuming that when you said the source, you mean God. I'm not sure about that, so you correct me if I'm wrong. But who is God then, Garnet?
Well, unlike what the Christian church taught me, he's not some old guy sitting in a gold throne and up in the sky, dispensing rewards and punishment and judging people. The Source is the sum total of everything in the universe. The Source created everything, and everything in the universe forms part of the Source, including you and me. We're all individual aspects of the Source, Ron, and everyone else on, every other soul is the same way. So we're all sort of, that's why we're all connected. We're connected to the Source and connected to each other. But it's not sort of like the God is over there and I'm over here and we're totally separate. We're not.
So are you part of God when you're not in the spiritual world, when you're a human? Do you feel that presence of God inside of you? And what about the soul? Where does the soul play into this?
Well, the soul sort of like takes a journey in a human body, and the soul doesn't totally control the human body, and you have a separate human mind, which doesn't always follow what the soul wants to do. But yeah, your soul is always part of the Source. You never lose that. When you return to the spirit side after you die, of course, you will realize your place in the universe, that you're part of the source. As humans, we don't appreciate that. We don't all realize we have souls, and we don't always appreciate that we're part of God, part of the source, not just part of the challenge of being a human on this planet, which is one of the more difficult schools in the universe, according to my spirit guide.
But why, Garnet? Why is it necessary, or why is it advantageous, I should say, for someone on the other side to experience being a human? What does it add to their overall journey experience?
Well, because on the spirit side, you can learn things. It's sort of like book knowledge, but they in order to sort of round out your wisdom, you need to have hands-on experience. So there's a lot of things on Earth that don't happen on the spirit side. For example, negative emotions are abundant on Earth. Fear, hate, anger, violence, that kind of thing doesn't exist on the spirit side. So if you really want to know what it's like to be the subject of hatred, or to be angry, or any of those other negative emotions, you really have to incarnate on Earth to experience it firsthand. And that's why we do that, is that because we want to go and get firsthand knowledge. That adds to our wisdom and helps with our evolution. And you just can't get that by book knowledge on the spirit side.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, what's the purpose of it? I mean, if you're on the spirit side and you're hanging out with other spirits, no hate, no negative emotions. Why do you need to experience it if you're going to continue to be on the spirit side?
Well, it's just because learning these things and experiencing these emotions on Earth, or you can incarnate on any other planet in the universe, it just adds to your wisdom and helps with your evolution, and you just evolve faster. It's sort of like if you're still on the spirit side, it's sort of like an adventure. Maybe hard for us to understand this, but it's sort of like, I think I should go to Earth and be incarnated as this human and experience what happens on Earth, and that's going to help with my overall knowledge and wisdom. And then, so that's why souls do it. No one forces them to it. You came here voluntarily, and it's to learn and experience things. And you may come back for many more incarnations, or you may decide to stay on the spirit side or incarnate on another planet. It's entirely up to you. So,
and when you say incarnate on another planet, I'm assuming then that in your mind there are quite a few other planets where life forms exist.
Absolutely. There's just millions and millions of them, just in our galaxy alone. And then, of course, there's all kinds of other galaxies. And we can choose to incarnate on any life form we want. In fact, we can choose to incarnate in other life forms on Earth. We can incarnate into animals if we wish, and some of us have already done that. Typically, when a soul comes to the planet Earth for incarnations, they may start off incarnating into animals and then gradually move up to humans, because humans are more complex and it's more difficult to handle. So you start off with the easy lesson, then move up to the more complex ones. But yes, and there's all kinds of life forms all over the galaxy, and you can go anywhere you want.
And do you have knowledge of these previous experiences in other life forms?
Yeah, you do once you're back in the spirit side. You don't in human form, because you forget all those things by design. You forget your previous lives on Earth and elsewhere. You forget your life plan. That's just to make it more of a challenge when you're here on Earth. I mean, if you remembered everything that you did in the past and what's in your life plan, there wouldn't be much of a lesson here on Earth. It'd be like a teacher giving the students the answers, the questions and answers to a final exam before the exam. Be no point in writing the exam. So it's very deliberate that you forget all this stuff while you're here, so that you can go through life sort of floundering a bit, I guess, and to try to find your own way. And that's just part of the challenge. And you knew that before you incarnated. That's just part of life on Earth.
We're talking with Garnet Schulhauser. He's an author. We're talking about dancing on a stamp, and we're talking about startling revelations from the other side. Garnet, do you go around and speak to groups about this, about your thoughts here?
Yeah, I do that, and I've been on a lot of radio shows. I'm also going to be speaking at my publisher's transformation conference in July in Arkansas. So whenever I get an opportunity, I certainly do, and I'm happy to pass on Albert's revelations to everyone. I'm also very active on social media and do a lot of posts and respond to a lot of people. So it's very, I'm very quite active, and I quite enjoy it.
What are Albert's revelations?
Well, Albert's the main one was that the source doesn't control our lives, doesn't make rules, and doesn't judge us. The other ones I've already alluded to is the fact that no one put us here. We came here by our own choice, and we chose our incarnation and chose the major factors in our lives, and even though we don't remember it, and that once we get here, we don't remember it, and we have free will to make actions and take decisions, and that's why we often go off stray. The other surprising one, Ron, was that Albert said that no one on earth dies by accident, so that we die when our soul decides it's time to leave the incarnation. So even if you have a plane crash with 300 people perishing, it wasn't an accident. The souls of all those people decided that that was the way they were going to make their exit, which is hard for us to believe, but that's how it works according to Albert.
Who is Albert?
Sorry?
Who you keep referring back to Albert?
Oh, Albert is my spirit guide, the guy that
the homeless
I had
guy.
the dialogue with and took me on my astral travels.
Right.
That's his name, Albert.
Albert. Okay. My final question, because we got more commercials to go to, Garnet, is how do people relate to you when you speak to groups? How do they relate to you? Do they think you're some crazy kook? Do they think that you're some fantastically knowledgeable individual? What do they think of you?
Well, most of the people think it's the latter. There's the odd person that thinks I'm a kook, but most of the people that come to the speaking engagements already are on that path, that spiritual path, and so they sort of are very susceptible to what I'm saying. And so I've gotten very good comments, and there's way more people think that I'm fortunate to have my contact with my spirit guide. And they give me credit for having the courage to come out of the spiritual closet, because what I'm doing now is very different from what I did as a practicing lawyer. So the comments have been very good. There's only the odd person that says I'm crazy, and I expected that, Ron, so that's just life.
Whether on the spiritual side or on the human side. We're talking with Garnet Schulhauser. We're talking about spirituality. And Garnet, where does Jesus come into your philosophy? Is he truly the Son of God? Is everyone the Son of God? How do you comport with that?
Well, everyone is the Son of God because we're all part of God, part of the source. But Jesus was a very advanced soul, referred to as a master. And Jesus incarnated into the human body, Jesus Christ, in order to come and help humanity, to give us a kick in the pants, to get us sort of going in the right direction. And so all the wonderful things that he did and said were designed to sort of lead us on a new path of spiritual enlightenment. And what resulted, of course, was the Christian church developed from that. But Jesus didn't give the church leaders all the dogma and rules and beliefs that they developed over the centuries, but he came to teach us very basic, common, good messages like love your brother as yourself and so on. And he did perform the miracles that are attributed to him in the Bible. He didn't do that because God was helping him. He did it because he learned to use a larger portion of his brain and to focus his thoughts to tap into the energy of the universe. So he did walk on water and turn water into wine and so on. But he did that sort of on his own because he had learned to focus his thoughts. But he was a very, very great soul. He's still there on the spirit side. I'm sure he's shaking his head a bit at what has happened with the Christian church and how they've sort of gone off on their own a bit. The leaders sort of hijacked his beliefs and built the church around it. But what Jesus told us and what you read in the Bible was all very true, subject to a lot of editing that the subsequent leaders did on the scriptures and the Gospels. But the basic truths that Jesus spoke they came from him, and he did it to sort of help us learn to embrace love and compassion and discard our negative emotions.
Quick question for you, final question. How can folks get in touch with you or get your books?
You can go to my website, which is garnetschulhauser.com. There are buy links on my website. My email address is there, and I'd love to hear from your listeners.
Great. We appreciate you being a guest, Garnet. I'll spell your last name for our listeners so they can accurately go to your website. Appreciate you being a guest this morning as well, okay?
Thank you, Ron.
Okay, thank you.
The Ron Ponder Show. Weekday mornings at 10. News Talk 1480 WHBC.